Twentynine Palms UFO Flyover. Watchers in Palm Springs. Men in Black Chronicles Chapter 1. The celestial event. The desert night was cool and clear, the inky darkness pierced by thousands of pinprick stars. The serenity of Palm Springs, a desert oasis of palm trees and mid-century homes, was suddenly disrupted. 3 triangular UFOs, each corner aglow with a reddish-orange light, streaked across the sky above Twentynine Palms. Inside Desert High School's computer lab, Travis was engrossed in his work, finishing a project for his final year. The room's only sounds were the tapping of keys and the faint hum of computer fans. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with a series of rapid-fire notifications. He picked it up and saw dozens of messages and video links. Every single one about the same thing, the celestial event now known all over town. Pulling up one of the videos, Travis watched as the 3 triangular objects hovered, moved in synchrony, then shot off at a speed no man-made aircraft could achieve. Goosebumps prickled his skin. This wasn't like the hoaxed videos he'd laughed off before. This was real. Just as he was about to delve deeper, the door of the computer lab burst open. A group of students rushed in, their faces a mixture of excitement and fear. Among them was Zoe, his childhood friend, her blue eyes wide with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Did you see them?" she gasped, rushing to Travis's side. "Just the videos." "What the hell, Zoe?" Zoe leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I was at the park. Saw them with my own eyes. They were real, Trav. And then, they just vanished." The room buzzed with anxious conversation. Stories began to circulate. Some students claimed the UFOs had shown beams of light down at the desert. Others swore they'd seen figures inside. But with every wild tale, a thread of truth remained consistent: the shape of the crafts, the reddish-orange lights, and their uncanny movement. The bell rang, signaling the end of the day. As students filed out, discussing plans to visit Twentynine Palms and see the site for themselves, Travis was stopped by a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find Mr. Daniels, his history teacher, a man who was usually more interested in the past than contemporary events. "Be careful, Travis," he said, his normally jovial face serious. "There are things out there, things we don't understand. And sometimes, it's best to let mysteries remain unsolved." Travis raised an eyebrow. "You sound like you're speaking from experience." Mr. Daniels hesitated, looking around to ensure they were alone. "A long time ago, something like this happened. People got curious, went looking. Some of them never came back the same." Before Travis could probe further, the teacher walked away, leaving him with more questions than answers. Travis, now more curious than ever, decided to do some evening recon. Armed with his camera and Zoe by his side, they drove out towards Twentynine Palms. As they neared the location, the bright lights of Palm Springs gave way to a darker desert landscape, the road illuminated only by their car's headlights and the moon. They reached a vantage point overlooking the military base. Switching off the car, they sat in silence, eyes trained on the sky. Hours seemed to pass, and just as Travis was about to suggest they head back, a faint glow appeared on the horizon. 3 triangular crafts, identical to those in the videos, emerged. Hovering above the base, they shone beams of light down, scanning the ground below. Zoe, her hand trembling, pointed to the ground where the beams touched. Dark, shadowy figures, men, were converging on the spot. Suddenly, one of the beams swung towards them. In a panic, Travis turned the ignition. The car roared to life, headlights piercing the darkness, illuminating the figures below. They weren't regular men. Dressed in black suits, their faces obscured, they looked directly at Travis and Zoe. Without a word, Travis slammed the accelerator, tires screeching against the desert floor. As they sped away, the crafts shot up into the sky, disappearing as suddenly as they had appeared. The drive back was silent, the weight of what they had witnessed pressing down on them. As they neared Palm Springs, Travis's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number lit up the screen. "It's best you forget what you saw tonight." Chilled to the bone, Travis looked over at Zoe. Her face, pale in the car's dim light, said it all. They had ventured into something far larger and more terrifying than they could have ever imagined. And as they drove into the city limits, in the rearview mirror, a solitary figure in a black suit watched them disappear into the night. Chapter 2. Whispered threats. Sunlight streamed through the curtains of Travis's room the next morning, bringing with it the promise of a new day. But the events of last night were not easily forgotten. They clung to him like a shadow, tugging at the edges of his consciousness. He sat up, glancing at his phone on the nightstand. The ominous message from the unknown number stared back at him. Zoe had crashed at his place last night, neither of them wanting to be alone. She was in the living room, clutching a mug of coffee, her face devoid of its usual color. "We weren't just seeing things, right?" she whispered. "Those crafts, those men. It was real?" Travis nodded slowly. "It was. And I think there's more going on in Twentynine Palms than any of us ever imagined." They sat in silence, processing the weight of their discovery. Travis's gaze fell on the camera he had taken with him last night. Without thinking, he had captured some of the evening's events. Turning it on, he shuffled through the videos and stopped when he came across the right one. The footage was shaky, but it clearly showed the triangular crafts and their reddish-orange lights. As the video played, the two of them watched in awe and horror. The crafts hovered and then beamed down lights onto the ground. The shadowy figures began to converge, and then the video jerked as Travis hastily turned the camera, capturing their escape. This is evidence, Trav," Zoe said, her voice trembling. He nodded. "We need to share this. People need to know the truth." But as he attempted to upload the footage to social media, he found his efforts blocked. No matter which platform he tried, the upload failed. "It's like they're controlling everything," Zoe muttered. Suddenly, Travis's phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "We warned you. It's best you forget. Last chance." Travis showed the message to Zoe. Her eyes widened, and she looked around nervously, as if expecting one of the men in black to jump out from behind the curtains. "What are we going to do?" "We need help," Travis whispered. "Someone who knows about these things, someone who won't be easily intimidated." A name popped into Travis's mind. Mr. Daniels. His warning from yesterday echoed in Travis's head. Grabbing his camera and bag, he motioned for Zoe to follow. They found Mr. Daniels in his classroom, preparing for his next lecture. The room was filled with artifacts from the past, paintings of historical events, and old newspapers framed on the walls. "Sir," Travis began hesitantly, "remember what you said yesterday about something similar happening before?" Mr. Daniels looked up, his expression grave. "I was hoping you wouldn't dig any deeper, Travis. Some truths are too dangerous." "We captured footage, sir," Zoe interjected, showing him the video. Mr. Daniels watched, his expression turning darker with each passing second. "You both are in grave danger," he whispered. "I've seen this before, almost 2 decades ago. Those crafts, those men. They're not from our world. And they will do anything to protect their secrets." He shuffled through his drawers, pulling out a weathered newspaper clipping. The headline screamed, "Mysterious Disappearances in Twentynine Palms, Connection to UFO Sightings?" The article mentioned several locals who had witnessed strange phenomena and had then either disappeared or were found with no memory of the event. These people, Mr. Daniels's voice wavered, pointing at the photographs, they were my friends. They saw something they shouldn't have. And they paid the price. Travis gulped, realizing the magnitude of what they were dealing with. What should we do? Mr. Daniels looked around, ensuring no one was eavesdropping. There's a group, underground, that has been tracking these occurrences for years. They call themselves the Watchers. Find them, and they may be able to help. He handed Travis a small note with an address scribbled on it. Go there tonight. And for God's sake, be careful. As the day wore on, an unsettling feeling took over the town. People whispered in hushed tones, exchanging stories of the men in black visiting their homes, questioning them about the events of the previous night. Some claimed their neighbors had gone missing. Fear was palpable in the air. Nightfall came quickly, and with Zoe by his side, Travis made his way to the address Mr. Daniels had given them. It led to a nondescript building on the outskirts of Palm Springs. A sign read, Desert Antiques. Entering, they were greeted by a labyrinth of old furniture, dusty books, and aged trinkets. A bell above the door tinkled, and an elderly man appeared from the back. We're here to see someone about the Watchers? Travis ventured. The man's eyes sharpened. He motioned for them to follow. Leading them to the back, he opened a door to reveal a modern room filled with computers, screens, and maps covered in pins and scribbles. A woman, with silver streaks in her hair, looked up. You're the kids who captured the footage? Travis nodded. Good. We've been waiting for something like this. Welcome to the Watchers, she said, extending her hand. I'm Lena. And it's time we exposed the truth. Outside, unbeknownst to them, a line of sleek black cars parked silently. Shadowy figures emerged, adjusting their ties, ready to ensure their secret remained just that. Chapter 3. Shadows and Revelations. The room was a stark contrast to the rest of the antique store. Modern equipment hummed softly, juxtaposed against the aged wooden floors. Screens displayed a multitude of data, charts, and satellite feeds. It was as if they had stepped into the heart of a secret agency. Travis and Zoe exchanged a glance, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Let me explain, Lena began, gesturing to a large screen at the center of the room. For years, we've been monitoring these sightings, trying to collect evidence. There's been a pattern, but not one that's easily discernible to the public eye. She tapped a few keys, and a map appeared, pinpointing locations across Twentynine Palms and Palm Springs. Every point marked a sighting or an incident related to the mysterious men in black. But it's not just about UFO sightings, Lena continued. People disappear, memories are wiped clean, and all traces of these events vanish overnight. It's as if they're cleaning up, erasing any hint of their existence. Zoe gulped. Who are they? Lena looked grim. We aren't entirely sure. But they're not human. Not entirely, at least. We believe they're hybrids, working with a higher extraterrestrial authority to maintain a presence here, silently overseeing something. Travis frowned. But why? What do they want? Lena paced the room. That's the million-dollar question, kid. Their interest in Earth is clear, but their agenda is shrouded in mystery. Your footage, though, is the most concrete evidence we've had in years. As Lena spoke, an older man entered the room, adjusting a pair of thick glasses. Ah, you must be the brave souls I've heard about. I'm Albert, the tech brain behind this operation. Albert quickly set to work, attempting to enhance the footage from Travis's camera. As he tinkered, Travis noticed a familiar face among the members of the Watchers. Mr. Daniels stood in a corner, observing the proceedings. Their eyes met, and he gave Travis a nod. Finally, after what felt like hours, Albert paused the footage at a particularly clear frame, magnifying it. On the screen, a symbol was visible on the underside of the UFO. Lena leaned in, her face pale. "I've seen this before." She went to a cabinet, retrieving an old, tattered book. Flipping through the pages, she stopped at a hand-drawn sketch of the same symbol. The text below was written in a language Travis couldn't recognize. "This," Lena whispered, "is an ancient symbol representing a coalition of alien species. They've been visiting Earth for centuries. But their increased activity lately suggests something more imminent." Suddenly, the room's lights flickered. Monitors glitched, and a static-filled voice boomed from the speakers. "Cease your investigation. Return what you've taken." The voice was cold, devoid of emotion, sending shivers down Travis's spine. "We need to leave. Now," Lena ordered. Zoe gripped Travis's arm. "Our footage. We can't leave it here." Albert, tapping furiously at the keyboard, copied the footage onto a small flash drive. "Take this. Protect it with your life. It's the only copy now." The group rushed to the exit, but as the door swung open, they were met with an unsettling sight. The store was filled with the men in black, their cold, expressionless faces turning in unison towards the intruders. Mr. Daniels stepped forward, determination in his eyes. "Go. I'll hold them off." But Lena grabbed his arm. "Not this time, old friend." She pulled out a small device, pressing a button. A blinding light filled the room, disorienting the men in black momentarily. "This way," she yelled, leading the group to a hidden exit at the back of the store. They spilled out into the cool desert night, the stars overhead bearing silent witness to their escape. They could hear the muffled sounds of the men giving chase. Lena led them to a parked van, its engine already running. "Get in." As the vehicle sped off into the night, Travis looked back. The antique store was engulfed in flames, the fire consuming everything. "They won't stop," Lena said, her voice grim. "They'll do whatever it takes to keep their secrets." Zoe clutched the flash drive tightly. "Then we make sure everyone knows the truth." The road stretched ahead, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. The desert, with all its mysteries and secrets, loomed large. But Travis felt a fire within him, a determination to uncover the truth and protect his town, no matter the cost. Chapter 4. Whispers of the desert. The van sped through the winding roads, kicking up a haze of dust behind it. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with a mix of fear, determination, and anticipation. Travis sat hunched over, attempting to catch his breath, the weight of what they had just witnessed bearing down on him. Zoe, clutching the precious flash drive, looked out of the window, her expression lost in the vast desert expanse. "We need a plan," Lena stated, her grip tight on the steering wheel. "They've shown they can track us. We need to get to a safe house." Travis frowned. "A safe house? Here in Palm Springs?" Lena smirked. "You'd be surprised what secrets this town holds." As the van made its way towards the heart of the city, a peculiar building came into view. It was an old movie theater, its marquee faded, its doors locked for years. Yet as they approached, the entrance lit up, beckoning them inside. "They won't expect us here," Lena explained as she parked the van in a concealed alley. "The theater has been a haven for the Watchers for decades." The group entered the theater, its interior an amalgamation of the past and the present. Rows of vintage seats faced a vast screen, but surrounding them were modern consoles, monitors, and antennas. Albert, who had been quiet during the escape, began setting up a workstation. We need to analyze the footage further. If we can find more symbols, more patterns, we can decipher their next move. While Albert worked, Travis and Zoe explored the theater. Behind the curtain, they stumbled upon an old projector room. Dust-covered reels of film lay scattered, but one particular reel caught Travis's attention. It bore the same symbol they had seen on the UFO. As the film began to play, haunting images filled the screen. There were historical footages of UFO sightings, covert operations, and snippets of news reports. But most disturbing were the whispered conversations, interspersed throughout, discussing deals, agreements, and a grand plan. Zoe, her eyes wide, turned to Travis. "They've been here longer than we thought. They've been influencing our world, shaping events." As the realization dawned on them, a chilling voice echoed through the theater. "You shouldn't be here." The duo turned, their hearts racing. At the entrance stood a figure, dressed in the unmistakable attire of the men in black. But this one was different, older, with a cold, calculating glint in his eyes. "I am Arian," he introduced himself, his voice dripping with menace. "And I've come to retrieve what's ours." Travis stepped forward, defiance in his stance. "We won't let you." Arian smirked, producing a device that emitted a shrill tone. Instantly, Travis and Zoe were immobilized, their bodies refusing to obey their minds. Just as all seemed lost, a blinding light filled the room. Arian, taken by surprise, was momentarily distracted, allowing Lena to tackle him to the ground. The device skittered away, freeing Travis and Zoe from its grasp. The fight was fierce, the theater echoing with the sounds of the struggle. But with their combined efforts, they managed to overpower Arian. Tied to a chair, Arian looked anything but defeated. "Do you really think this will stop us? You're but a mere thorn in our path." Lena, her face inches from his, hissed, "Tell us what you want." "Why are you here?" Arian chuckled. "Our reasons are beyond your comprehension. But know this, your world will soon see change like never before." As the group tried to pry more information from him, Albert made a discovery. The flash drive contained coordinates, pointing to a location deep in the Mojave Desert. "We need to go there," he declared. "It could be the epicenter of their operations." But Lena was hesitant. It could be a trap. Travis, determination burning in his eyes, said, "We have to take that risk. For Palm Springs, for our world." As they made preparations to venture into the heart of the desert, the theater's lights flickered, casting eerie shadows. The atmosphere was thick with tension, the lines between ally and enemy blurred. The desert awaited, its sands holding secrets that would shape the fate of the world. And as the group set out, the moon cast an ominous glow, hinting at the challenges that lay ahead. Chapter 5. Into the void, the Mojave Desert stretched out like an endless sea of sand, its undulating dunes appearing deceptively calm under the silver wash of moonlight. The group's convoy, a blend of off-road vehicles, moved stealthily, their engines a mere hum in the quiet of the night. Inside one of the SUVs, Travis clenched the flash drive tightly, the coordinates Albert had discovered burned into his memory. Beside him, Zoe tried to peer into the darkness, her features drawn with anxiety. "We're nearing the coordinates," Albert whispered from the driver's seat, his gaze fixed on the GPS. As the vehicles approached the specified location, the desert floor began to change. The soft sands turned hard, metallic. It was as if they were driving on an enormous metal plate concealed beneath a thin layer of sand. Suddenly, a beam of blinding light shot up from the ground, forcing the convoy to a screeching halt. The air crackled with electricity. The vehicle's electronics went haywire, their dashboards flickering and alarms sounding. Emerging from the blinding light, the outlines of a massive underground facility became discernible. Massive steel doors, easily the size of a football field, began to slide open, revealing a cavernous entrance. A voice, modulated and cold, echoed around them. "You have trespassed into forbidden territory. Surrender now, or face the consequences." Before anyone could react, figures began to materialize from the darkness, their silhouettes dressed in the unmistakable attire of the men in black, but their numbers were staggering. It was an army. Lena, ever the strategist, quickly shouted, "Retreat! Get back to the vehicles!" But it was too late. The men in black, with a swiftness that defied logic, had surrounded them. Weapons that looked otherworldly were pointed at the group, their tips glowing ominously. Amid the chaos, Arian stepped forward, a smirk on his face. "I told you, you cannot stop us." Travis, defiance evident in his posture, retorted, "We won't let you take our world." Arian laughed, a cold, soulless sound. "Your world? You're merely tenants, and your lease is up." Suddenly, a sharp, ear-piercing noise echoed throughout the desert. The men in black staggered, clearly affected. Taking advantage of the momentary distraction, Zoe reached into her pocket and produced a small device. She pressed a button, and a blinding light enveloped the area. When the light faded, the men in black had vanished, leaving behind only the massive underground entrance. Zoe's device, it seemed, was a countermeasure she'd been working on in secret. Lena, wide-eyed, turned to Zoe. "What was that?" Zoe, panting from the adrenaline, replied, "A prototype. It disrupts their phase frequency, but it's a one-time use." Albert, still in shock, whispered, "We need to enter the facility. The answers lie within." The group hesitated, the unknown depths of the facility appearing even more ominous after their encounter. But the resolve to uncover the truth spurred them forward. Inside, the facility was vast, its architecture a blend of earthly designs and alien aesthetics. Massive chambers branched out in all directions, with machines that defied understanding humming softly. As they ventured deeper, they came across a room filled with large cylindrical chambers, each containing a human. Their eyes were open, but they looked lost, their expressions vacant. Travis recognized one of them. It was Mr. Harrison, his school's principal. He was one of the many who had been questioned by the men in black and had disappeared. "They're harvesting memories," Albert whispered, horror evident in his voice. "Extracting information about our world." Zoe, her eyes scanning the room, said, "We need to free them, but carefully. We don't know what these chambers are doing to them." While Lena and Zoe worked on devising a way to safely release the captured individuals, Travis and Albert ventured further into the facility. They came across a control room of sorts, its walls lined with screens displaying various locations on Earth. One screen, in particular, caught Travis's attention. It showed a massive fleet of UFOs, hovering just outside Earth's atmosphere. An invasion fleet. Albert, his voice shaking, said, "They're preparing for a full-scale invasion." "We were just the beginning." Travis, determination hardening his features, replied, "Then we stop them, here and now." The duo began working on the consoles, trying to find a way to sabotage the facility and send a warning to the outside world. Back in the chamber room, Zoe and Lena had managed to release a few of the captured individuals, including Mr. Harrison. But as they worked, the facility's alarms began to blare. "We're running out of time," Lena shouted. Suddenly, the entire facility began to rumble. On one of the control room screens, Travis and Albert saw the reason. The underground facility was detaching itself from the Earth, preparing to launch into space. "We need to get out, now," Travis yelled, but his voice was drowned by the deafening noise. As the facility rocketed upwards, the group was thrown off their feet. Desperation filled the air as they scrambled, searching for an escape. Outside, in the Mojave Desert, a massive structure began to rise from the ground, the concealed UFO facility revealing its true form. It soared into the night sky, leaving behind a trail of dust and the bewildered faces of the group's members. The battle had taken a drastic turn, but the determination to save their world from an impending invasion had only strengthened. The night was dark, but the glint of UFOs in the sky and the burning resolve in their hearts promised a dawn filled with hope and resistance. Chapter 6. Echoes of the unknown. The team found themselves scattered amid the vast Mojave Desert, having been ejected from the facility before it ascended. The night sky was dominated by the behemoth structure, now hovering menacingly above. Its dark silhouette occluded stars and emitted an ominous hum that reverberated through the desert. Panic surged through Travis's veins as he pulled himself to his feet, his mind racing with questions. Where were the others? Had they all survived? And the rising dread. What did these beings want with Earth? Searching through the sand and rocks, he found Zoe first. She was disoriented but thankfully unharmed. "Zoe, are you okay?" Travis called out as he ran to her side. Zoe slowly nodded, her face pale from the ordeal. "I think so. But we need to find the others." One by one, they managed to regroup. Albert, Lena, and the others had been thrown at varying distances from the site. All were shaken, but there were no serious injuries. A testament to their resilience, or perhaps a cruel joke played by their adversaries, ensuring they lived to witness the forthcoming horror. "We have to warn others," Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That thing. It's not just a base. It's a weapon." Albert, using a makeshift antenna connected to his laptop, tried to access any local radio or broadcast signals. "They're jamming everything," he announced grimly. "I can't get through." The gravity of their situation settled upon them like a leaden cloak. They were cut off, isolated in the desert with a looming alien structure and a potential invasion on the horizon. Travis, however, refused to give in to despair. "We need a plan. We need to figure out how to get the word out and find a way to fight back." "We might have one chance," Zoe said thoughtfully. "Before the alarms went off, I managed to download some data from their systems onto a portable drive. It's encrypted, but given time, I might be able to crack it." "But time is a luxury we don't have," Albert countered, peering up at the hovering behemoth. Zoe nodded, "which is why we need to head to my lab in Palm Springs. It's equipped with everything I need." The group unanimously agreed, understanding the urgency. Using their vehicles, they began their journey back to Palm Springs. The drive was tense, each person lost in their thoughts, with only the hum of the engines and the distant sounds of the desert for company. Halfway there, Lena, who had been observing the night sky, cried out, "Pull over." The convoy screeched to a halt. As they stepped out, Lena pointed upwards. The stars were wrong. Constellations had shifted, some stars brighter than before, while others had dimmed. A spectral dance of lights played out above them, eerily beautiful but unmistakably alien. "It's a message," Albert whispered. "Or a signal. They're communicating." "Or preparing," Travis added grimly. Pushing on, they reached Palm Springs. To their horror, the town was eerily silent, the streets deserted. Doors hung open, vehicles abandoned, and a chilling wind carried the echo of forgotten conversations. "It's like everyone just vanished," Zoe murmured, her voice shaking. Entering Zoe's lab, they found it ransacked. Equipment was strewn about, papers scattered. But, most disturbingly, a single phrase was scrawled on a whiteboard: "They know." Zoe quickly accessed her hidden backup servers, and they set to work on decrypting the alien data. Hours felt like minutes as codes ran, algorithms processed, and screens flickered. Finally, the decryption bore fruit. The data revealed schematics, diagrams of energy sources, communication frequencies, and, most shockingly, a list. A list of names. Some they recognized: world leaders, scientists, influential figures. But others were ordinary people from all over the world, including Travis's name. They're targeting individuals, Lena deduced. But why? Why regular citizens? Control, Albert replied. If they can control the influencers and a random sampling of ordinary people, they can predict and manage the reactions of the global populace. Realization dawned on Travis. The men in black, the abductions, the interrogations. It wasn't just intimidation. It was data collection. Suddenly, the room's lights flickered, and a low rumble shook the lab. On the horizon, the outline of the once grounded facility began to split, releasing smaller crafts. They swarmed like dark, metallic locusts, descending upon various parts of the globe. Their invasion had begun. "We need to transmit this data," Travis urged. "Expose their plans. Alert everyone." Zoe, working feverishly, set up a makeshift broadcast. "It's a long shot, but if we can transmit on a frequency they haven't blocked, we might reach someone." As the transmission began, a blinding light enveloped the room. The group shielded their eyes, disoriented. When the light faded, they were no longer in the lab. Instead, they stood in a vast, opulent chamber, its design an uncanny blend of earthly opulence and alien technology. In front of them, on an elevated throne, sat a figure. Humanoid, yet undeniably different. Its skin was translucent, revealing a fluid, bioluminescent network beneath. Its eyes, multifaceted like those of an insect, regarded them with cold indifference. "Welcome," it intoned, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "You have proven to be problematic, but also resourceful." Chills ran down Travis's spine. They were face to face with their adversary, the mastermind of the invasion. And it seemed it had the upper hand. The game of cat and mouse had taken a perilous turn, but the spirit of resistance was far from broken. The stakes had never been higher. Chapter 7. Beneath the gaze of the unknown, the silence within the chamber was absolute. Even the background hum of machinery and the faint sounds that tend to echo in large spaces seemed smothered by an inexplicable, alien energy. Travis and his group stood in a tight cluster, their eyes darting around, trying to make sense of the foreign surroundings while instinctively sizing up potential escape routes. The entity on the throne, exuding an aura of otherworldly majesty, appeared both familiar and eerily foreign. Its iridescent skin shimmered with each subtle shift in the ambient light, and its gaze seemed to penetrate the very soul of each member of the group. "Your efforts to interfere with our plan have been interesting," the being began, each word articulated slowly, each syllable dripping with an enigmatic blend of curiosity and disdain. Zoe, finding her voice, responded sharply, "You've invaded our planet, taken our people, and threatened our way of life." "What did you expect?" The creature leaned forward, the faintest hint of a smirk playing on its alien features. "Expectation implies uncertainty. We do not expect. We calculate, predict, and act accordingly." Albert, the scientist, racked by a mix of fear and inquisitiveness, ventured a question. "Why? Why are you doing this?" The entity paused, tilting its head slightly, its many-faceted eyes reflecting an endless depth of intellect. Why? An intrinsically human question, always seeking meaning where there may be none. This, it gestured expansively, encompassing the room, the hovering facility, and implicitly their entire operation, is about balance. Lena, brows furrowed, muttered, "Balance? You're tearing apart our lives, our planet. What balance is there in that?" The being steepled its fingers, taking a moment before replying. "Your species thrives on chaos. We bring order. For the greater good of the universe." Travis stepped forward, defiance evident in his stance. "At what cost? You talk about order, but all I see is destruction and fear. We will resist. We will fight." A deep, resonant laughter filled the chamber, originating from the entity. "Fight? Resist? You misunderstand your place in the cosmos. This planet, its resources, its inhabitants, everything is but a speck in the grand tapestry of existence." For a moment, the weight of their situation threatened to crush their spirits. But Travis, recalling the data, the transmissions, the hope they had kindled, met the entity's gaze unflinchingly. "Maybe to you, we're just a speck. But to us, Earth is everything. And we will do whatever it takes to protect it." A sudden, sharp noise interrupted the tension-laden standoff. From the shadows of the chamber, another figure emerged, similar in appearance to the entity on the throne but radiating a different energy. Where the first was cold and calculating, this new presence felt volatile, even aggressive. "You should have listened to the warnings," it hissed, addressing the entity on the throne. "These humans, they're unpredictable, dangerous." The lead entity, clearly higher in rank, responded calmly, "Everything is under control." But as the two conversed, Zoe noticed something. A panel on the side of the chamber, blinking intermittently. An interface, possibly a control mechanism. Whispering to Travis, she gestured subtly. "Travis, if we can reach that panel, I think I might be able to disrupt whatever system they have in place. 'Cause a distraction, maybe give us a chance." The whisper, though quiet, did not escape the acute senses of the two entities. The aggressive one lunged, but Lena, with surprising agility, threw a device she had been secretly crafting, a rudimentary EMP emitter. It discharged, sending a pulse of electromagnetic energy throughout the chamber. Lights flickered, the ambient hum waned, and the alien entities seemed disoriented, if only for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, Zoe rushed to the panel, fingers dancing over the unfamiliar controls, while Travis and the others stood guard. Moments that felt like hours passed, and then an alarm blared, echoing throughout the facility. Strobing lights bathed the chamber in a frantic dance of red. Zoe turned, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. "I've triggered a cascade failure in their power grid. It won't last long, but we need to move." The group sprinted from the chamber, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the facility, the red emergency lights guiding their path. As they ran, they could hear the sounds of confusion, the alien entities scrambling to restore order. Reaching an external hatch, they emerged into the cold desert night, the vastness of the Mojave stretching out before them. The towering facility above was in chaos, lights blinking erratically and smaller craft zipping about in apparent disarray. They had dealt a blow to the invaders, but the war was far from over. Drawing a collective breath, the group prepared for their next move, knowing that the fate of Earth and its people rested on their shoulders. The battle for humanity's future had just begun. Chapter 8. Echoes of silence. The pulsating lights from the facility faded behind them as Travis, Zoe, Lena, and Albert tore through the desert night. The sand beneath their feet seemed to shift with an uncanny life of its own, sending echoes of ancient secrets through the chilling breeze. As they progressed deeper into the Mojave's vastness, A pressing silence enveloped them, broken only by their desperate breaths and pounding heartbeats. It was in this eeriness that the real horror of their situation became evident. The vastness of the universe, with its mysterious entities and their inscrutable motives, threatened to swallow them whole. The group's exhaustion was palpable when Albert suddenly stopped, his eyes widening. "Do you hear that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. Travis strained his ears, and then he too caught it, a distant hum, growing steadily louder. A fleet of unidentified craft, their silhouettes dark against the shimmering night sky, was rapidly approaching. "We can't outrun them," Zoe panted, the weight of desperation pressing down on her. Lena, ever the pragmatist, pointed to a cluster of rock formations to their right. "There! We can hide there and maybe find a cave or a crevice to shield us." The quartet raced towards the formation, praying to remain unseen. As they neared the rocks, a faint glow emanated from beneath, hinting at an underground cavern. Sliding into the cave, they found themselves in an expansive chamber adorned with ancient petroglyphs. The drawings depicted humanoid figures reaching towards the skies, worshipping other, more abstract figures that bore an uncanny resemblance to the entities they'd just encountered. "Look," whispered Zoe, her fingers brushing gently against a particular glyph that showed a triangular craft similar to the UFOs they'd seen. This has happened before." Travis nodded, the realization sinking in. The legends of ancient civilizations, stories of gods from the sky, could it be? ... Quote. Albert, ever the scientist, interjected, "It's a theory called ancient astronauts. The idea that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in the distant past and influenced our history. These petroglyphs might be evidence." As they marveled at this discovery, the deafening hum above grew, echoing through the cavern. The entrance was illuminated by a fierce, pulsating light, casting eerie shadows that danced menacingly over the petroglyphs. Huddled in the furthest recesses of the cavern, the group watched in horror as several beings entered, their outlines distorted by the intense light. Lena, her voice trembling, whispered, "They're searching for us, and it's only a matter of time before they find our hiding spot." The oppressive weight of impending doom pressed down on them. But amid the terror, a spark of determination ignited within Travis. "We can't just hide and hope they go away. We need a plan." As the beings drew closer, Zoe, her mind racing, began to rig together a makeshift explosive device using some salvaged tech from their earlier escape. "If we can cause a cave-in, it might buy us some time and trap them inside," she proposed. With no better option, they got to work, setting up the device at the entrance. As they primed it, a chilling, mechanical voice echoed through the chamber, "Surrender, and your lives will be spared." The group exchanged glances. Surrender was not an option. Travis, summoning every ounce of courage, replied, "We will never surrender our planet." The beings advanced, their forms now visible in the dim cavern light, sinister, elongated figures with cold, gleaming eyes. They approached with a calculated menace, devoid of emotion. Travis locked eyes with Zoe, giving her a silent nod. She activated the device. A deafening explosion rocked the cavern. Dust and debris flew everywhere. The entrance was sealed, and an eerie silence, punctuated only by muffled, distant sounds, descended once again. As the dust settled, the group, miraculously unharmed, took stock of their situation. They were trapped underground, with no way to communicate with the outside world and limited supplies. But for Travis, this was a moment of clarity. "We've seen the evidence. This isn't their first time here, and if we don't act, it won't be their last. We may be trapped, but we've got knowledge, and knowledge is power." Lena, drawing strength from Travis's words, nodded. "We've faced insurmountable odds before. We'll find a way out, regroup, and fight back." Albert, gazing at the petroglyphs, mused, "The ancients left us a message. Maybe there's more to this place, a way out, a secret waiting to be unlocked." The quartet, their spirits lifted by this newfound resolve, set out to explore the deeper recesses of the cavern, hoping to find answers, an escape route, and maybe, just maybe, a weapon to turn the tide in the impending battle for Earth. The horror of their reality was still very real, but so was their determination to fight. Whatever lay ahead, they were ready. The next chapter of humanity's story was waiting to be written, and they were the authors. Chapter 9. Whispers of the Ancients. The labyrinthine network of tunnels seemed endless. With each twist and turn, the group became increasingly aware that they weren't merely navigating a natural cavern but an intricate system, painstakingly carved and fashioned by intelligent hands long before their time. The petroglyphs weren't limited to the chamber they'd first encountered. As they ventured deeper, the walls bore witness to an unfolding narrative. Illustrations depicted celestial beings bestowing knowledge upon the ancients, vast armadas filling the skies, and the construction of the triangular crafts, the same crafts now haunting the present. "I think," Albert mused, running his fingers over a particularly detailed etching, "these drawings are not just stories, they're instructions." Zoe leaned closer, her brow furrowing. "A blueprint of sorts, or maybe a warning." Lena chimed in, her voice echoing through the narrow passageway. "What if this is the ancients' way of telling us how to fight back? How to defeat these entities?" But even as hope bloomed, the gravity of their isolation pressed in on them. The stale air, the haunting silence punctuated only by their footsteps, and the oppressive darkness that their torches could barely penetrate, all served as a grim reminder. They were very much alone in this subterranean realm. Then, just when the silence seemed most suffocating, a faint sound reached their ears. A low, rhythmic chanting echoing through the tunnels. Drawn irresistibly, the group followed the sound, until they emerged into a vast underground chamber, so enormous that their torches couldn't illuminate the far walls. In the center of the room stood a monolithic structure, glowing faintly and inscribed with the same symbols they'd seen throughout the caverns. Surrounding it, translucent figures, spirits of the ancients, were engaged in the chant, their voices weaving a haunting melody that resonated with power and sorrow. Zoe, her voice filled with wonder, whispered, "These are the souls of those who fought before us, trying to guide us, trying to show us the way." Approaching the monolith, Travis felt an energy pulling him forward. As he laid a hand on its cool surface, a rush of images flooded his mind, scenes of epic battles, powerful weapons harnessing the energy of the cosmos, and a portal, a gateway to another dimension. Staggering back, he gasped, trying to process the barrage of information. They had a plan, he panted. A way to banish these invaders. The secret lies in opening a portal, sending them back to where they came from. Lena's eyes widened. But that kind of power, it's immense. Can we harness it? Albert nodded gravely. It's not just about harnessing it, it's about controlling it. The ancients tried, and look where it got them. If we're not careful, we could end up like these spirits, trapped in limbo forever. The gravity of their task weighed heavily on their shoulders. But they had no choice. It was a race against time to decipher the instructions and gather the necessary components to construct the portal. For days, they combed the tunnels, guided by the ethereal glow of the spirits and the cryptic instructions of the petroglyphs. They encountered rooms filled with ancient artifacts, remnants of advanced technology, and repositories of cosmic knowledge. But as the days turned into nights and back into days, a creeping sense of dread gnawed at them. They were not alone in the caverns. Whispers in the shadows, Fleeting figures in their peripheral vision and the growing sense of being watched made it clear. The entities had penetrated this sanctuary. One evening, as they rested in a chamber, a chilling breeze swept through, extinguishing their torches. Panic gripped them as the room plunged into darkness. Then, just as suddenly, a soft luminescence filled the space. They looked up to see the spirits of the ancients surrounding them, forming a protective barrier. The disembodied voice of the lead spirit resonated, echoing through the chamber. You are on the brink of a pivotal moment. The entities seek to stop you, but you carry the hopes of past and future generations. Remember our mistakes. Remember our sacrifice. With that, the spirits dissipated, leaving the group in profound silence. Albert, his voice quivering, broke the stillness. We're close. The final pieces are just ahead. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere grew palpably more sinister. Shadows seemed to writhe and shift, and the very walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Finally, they reached a vast antechamber. At its center stood a pedestal holding a crystalline device pulsing with energy. Guarding it, however, were several of the entities, their eyes fixated on the intruders. Travis locked eyes with one, and for a moment, a flood of emotions rushed through him: fear, sorrow, anger, and an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. This battle had been fought before, and the stakes had never been higher. As the two sides sized each other up, a tense silence settled. The fate of the Earth, past, present, and future, hung in the balance. And the battle for control of the portal was about to begin. Chapter 10. Descent into the abyss. The vast antechamber became the battleground for an age-old conflict, one whispered of in legends, recorded in petroglyphs, and ingrained in the memory of the ancients. Travis, Zoe, Albert, and Lena were about to play a crucial role in a battle that had likely shaped the course of human history. The entities guarding the crystalline device moved in ways unfamiliar to human perception. Rather than walking or running, they seemed to glide, their bodies morphing and contorting, as if time and space behaved differently around them. Without warning, the cavern was flooded with an eerie, greenish glow emanating from the entities. Shadows danced violently on the cavern walls, giving the illusion of an army of spectral beings joining the fray. The glow began to intensify, converging on the group, making them feel exposed and vulnerable. Albert, holding onto a relic they'd found earlier in the caverns, muttered an incantation. As he did, a blue protective barrier began to emanate from him, pushing back against the green glow. The two forces collided, creating a kaleidoscope of light that illuminated every corner of the chamber. Lena, summoning her newfound psychic abilities, tried to breach the minds of the entities, seeking a weakness, any chink in their armor. She was immediately met with a barrage of memories and emotions, an alien consciousness that threatened to consume her. Gritting her teeth, she pushed deeper, searching for an advantage. Zoe, ever the warrior, lunged at one of the entities, using the ancient weapons they had gathered along the way. Her strikes seemed to pass through them as if they were intangible, but where she made contact, she disrupted their form momentarily. Travis, feeling an inexplicable connection to the crystalline device, made his way towards it. Each step was a Herculean effort, as if the very air around him had turned to molasses. The closer he got, the more memories flooded his mind. Scenes of past civilizations, long-lost technologies, and the faces of ancestors urging him on. The entities, sensing his intent, increased their efforts, releasing a sonic wave of energy that threatened to shatter the protective barrier Albert had created. The group was thrown off balance, the cave echoing with their screams of pain. In that moment of despair, the spirits of the ancients materialized again, bolstering the group's defenses. With their aid, Albert's barrier held firm, Zoe's weapons found their mark, and Lena managed to infiltrate the mind of one of the entities, sending it into a frenzied state. Using this momentary distraction, Travis reached the pedestal, placing his hand on the crystalline device. An electric shockwave pulsed through the chamber. The device began to resonate with his heartbeat, amplifying it, echoing it through the very core of the earth. The room trembled, rocks dislodged from the ceiling, crashing down. But the group and the entities remained locked in their cosmic dance, the balance of power shifting back and forth. The device's energy started drawing the entities toward it, their forms disintegrating, being absorbed into the crystal. As the last entity was absorbed, the chamber went eerily quiet. The device's glow dimmed, returning the room to its ancient stillness. The immediate danger was over, but the weight of their mission was far from lifted. Albert, panting from exertion, spoke up, "We've acquired the device, but now we need to understand its purpose and harness its power." Lena, still reeling from her psychic journey, nodded. "There's a confluence of energy here, a nexus point. This device is key to unlocking it." Zoe, inspecting one of the fallen entities, observed, "These beings aren't just from another place. They're from another time, possibly another dimension." Travis, cradling the device, felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. "We've been chosen to end this cycle, to break the loop. We need to unlock the secrets of this device and use it to seal the portal, once and for all." But as they began their preparations, a chilling realization dawned on them. The battle had drawn the attention of more entities. Somewhere in the caverns, echoing footsteps and otherworldly murmurs signaled the approach of a much larger force. The group fortified their position, preparing for the onslaught. As the first of the entities entered the chamber, the group braced themselves for the fight of their lives. The fate of the world hung in the balance, and they were the last line of defense against an ancient cosmic threat. We hope you have enjoyed our storytelling offering tonight. Please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to be alerted of future weekly additions to our collections. Paranormal Untold Stories.